Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let me make a stopping time. Okay, let's go now. Welcome to the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room podcast. We are here to podcast about anything and everything Star Wars with you. Please visit our website where you can play current and past episodes. That's https://RABR KyleJohansson.us. That's RABR dot KAILEJOHANSEN dot US. On the left-hand side is a navigation menu. You can use this to learn how to load the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room podcast on your Android or Apple phone and tablet. And we have direct links to our podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts. Please participate by connecting to our social media, answering questions of the week, or submitting feedback directly from the site. Again, all of these are available at the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room website at RABR.KAILEJOHANSEN.US. And now it's time for Star Wars. I am Kyle John Johansson, and this is Andrew Scott Sutton. Say hello. 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 So today we're reviewing the Clone Wars, the movie. Like I was just telling you earlier, this movie was basically an introduction to the Clone Wars TV series. George Lucas was heavily involved in the Clone Wars series, and along with Dave Filoni, he decided that they needed to do a movie to introduce the series. And this is what came out of it. I think from what I saw, they had already done several episodes and stuff of the series, and they're like, well, let's use some of this footage and do a movie. It's a 98-minute movie. Let me see. I got my information here. Movie's 98 minutes long. Um, uh, it was published or released in November 11th, 2008. It was released on all kinds of media. It was released on DVD, Blu-ray, and iTunes at the time. Not, it was later after the theatrical release, but yeah, it doesn't say when exactly it was for iTunes, but it was 1080p on the Blu-ray, and there was two versions of the Blu-ray. There was a single disc and then a double disc deluxe edition that had tons of extras, and you could do you could watch it, and there was a two panel screen. So one panel was the movie, and the other panel was the actor doing the voice stuff. So whenever someone was doing a voice thing, they had a panel on the screen that you could see them doing the voice, which is sounds kind of cool. And it was interesting. It was released in uh, it was released in Britain before it was released here. Let's see. Yeah, Germany.
Was it released in Japan first?
No, it was released in Germany and Austria. Nope. Yep, Australia. It was released on August 14th, 2008, and in the United States, it was released on August 15th, so the next day. Again, it's 98 minutes long. The director is Dave Filoni. The producer is executive producer is George Lucas, of course. And it was interesting too because George put out a call to all of the actors in the previous movies and said, "Hey, we're thinking about having your character in a movie. Do you want to do the voice part?" And he reached out, and he was able to get Anthony Daniels and Samuel L. Jackson to voice their characters, and they mostly found other people to voice everybody else. It looks like. Yeah, so there's that, and of course, Lucas was in charge of all this. The physical movie um, releases to DVD and VHS and all that crap were owned by Warner movies, but the rest of it was all owned by Lucas, including merchandising. And the movie, let's see here. It was released with a budget of I think I saw $8 or $9 million, and in the first week it made 14. Here we go. Uh, the movie earned $14.6 million on 3,590 screens, including 6.2 million on the opening day of August 15th. That's first weekend. So the total earnings was 68.28 million. Let's see. I know it said in here how much it cost to make it. 5 points. Nope, that's wrong. I think it was like $8 million. I don't know where that's at right now. But it was heavily criticized too, because like we said, they introduced a new character that had never been in Star Wars before, and it kind of messed up some timelines and everything because apparently she was alive during the first three movies, The Phantom Menace and all that stuff. So where was she then? Why wasn't she ever seen then? And why is this the first time we're seeing her? Blah blah blah, and it messes up the New Hope and all that stuff because she's alive during that time. Why don't we ever see her? Kind of thing. So there's a lot of criticism about that because they didn't they she was kind of snarky and
Yeah.
came back a lot at Anakin, and a lot of the reviewers didn't like that. They were like, oh, she's a little kind of bratty little thing.
She was just like Annie.
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close. And I mean, remember, I told you she is 14 years old when we first see her in the movie. So let's get into it a little bit here. So at the beginning, in the Clone Wars and all those related series to it, there's always a voiceover in the beginning, kind of like a news bulletin type of thing. And we see it throughout the entire series. I think we see it in Rebels, and we see it in other shows too, where like one of the admirals is giving you a news briefing or something, and he says, "A galaxy divided, striking swiftly after the Battle of Geonosis. Count Dooku's droid army has seized control of the major hyperspace lanes, separating the Republic from the majority of its clone army. With a few clones available, the Jedi generals cannot gain a foothold on the Outer Rim as more and more planets choose to join Dooku's separatists. While the Jedi are occupied fighting a war, no one is left to keep the peace. Chaos and crime spread, and the innocent become victims in a lawless galaxy. The crime lord Jabba the Hutt's son has been kidnapped by a rival band of pirates. Desperate to save his son, Jabba puts out a call for help, a call the Jedi are cautious to answer." So that kind of sets up what our entire movie's about there. And so then we start out, and we see some sort of weird octopus-like craft flying around out in space, and it captures Jabba the Hutt's son, and it's on a crystalline planet, where we first see Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi. They're fighting a battle, and the planet's called Christophesis. And they have a very limited clone army, and some local forces that are helping them out. We see Rex and Cody. Those guys are Captain. It's Captain Rex and Captain Cody. And they're advancing on the forces. They're having trouble, and they win an early victory, which we hear about. Yoda and I think it's probably Windu are mentioning that they've won a victory, and but they can't reach them. They can't get a hold of them. Right? They're out of communication range. Something's jamming their communications or something like that. Right?
But before that, Java, they're pretty sure this is before Java and its interpreters on that hologram call to
Palpatine. Yeah. That's where they
Samuel
tell
Jackson.
him. Yeah. That's where they tell him that. That's where they tell Palpatine that Kenobi and Anakin are just got a victory at this Christophus planet. Yeah. So Jabba is talking to Palpatine.
My son, you must help me.
Yeah. You must help me because I'll give you access to trade routes or something like that, is what he says, I believe. And yeah, so we switch to the planet where they're fighting. They're fighting this general called General Loathsome, which is kind of a funny name. Loathsome. Like I said, they have
Sean Connery.
You think it's Sean Connery?
Sean Connery voice, yes.
Could be. He's not listed as a person in there, but that doesn't mean anything. It was a small part. He wasn't in there very much, but
the most later on for the peace talk.
Yeah, the negotiation thing. Yeah, soldiers. Okay. So they have this big battle, and what is it? The forces, they put up a force field right away, don't they? And Kenobi tasks Anakin to take down the force field, and they also see a shuttle that's coming in with a very important delivery. It says, on that shuttle, they think is reinforcements, more clone troopers or whatever, and it opens up, and all they see is a young Padawan named Ahsoka Tano. And Kenobi and Anakin both assume that she's there to be a Padawan of Kenobi.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
But she insists that Yoda has tasked her to be the Padawan of Anakin. And right off the bat, Anakin doesn't really like her in the first place. I think partly because he doesn't want a Padawan, but he likes to do stuff by himself, right? So
That's not so good.
yeah.
So I'll call you Anakin.
No,
Hey, Darth, what's up?
yeah. Uh, okay, so they've like I said, they've got a shield that they've generated, and now with Ahsoka, Anakin um takes her with him reluctantly. You know, after a few arguments and stuff like that, Anakin um reluctantly agrees to let her come with him to take out the shield generator, and they're having all kinds of troubles because they have limited clone forces, and they're pretty much outgunned, and everything's behind this big shield. So they come up with a plan to get through the shield by hiding under um, something that looks like a box or a crate or something, and um, when the shield passes over them, they are able to sneak behind all the troops and head towards the shield, right? Shield generator, right?
Yeah.
We see a lot of battles with Kenobi and whatever clone forces are left, and they're not doing very well, but they're holding up their own a little bit. Um, they keep retreating back because, of course, the troops are pushing them back, and there's a deadline here because once the shield gets over um, the heavy cannons uh, that Kenobi is managing, they'll be able to take them out. They're close enough to be able to take them out. So Anakin and Ahsoka are in a hurry to kind of get to the shield generator and take it out. Because once the shield generator is down, they can probably destroy quite a bit of forces, right? Um, and we see Obi-Wan Kenobi finally, they come up close to him, and he finally basically improvises a surrender and negotiations with this General Losum, right? Um,
That's
he
not
he
good.
he pulls up a rock or something for chairs and whatever using the Force, right? Uh,
That's how.
I've conceded the battle. Now we simply have to negotiate the terms of surrender.
yeah, it's
Which,
kind of loud.
no reason we can't consider them.
Yeah, so they kind of go through a fake negotiations and whatever, and he wants a guarantee, but this Lothsome doesn't trust Kenobi, right? So eventually, they start fighting about this and that, and Lothsome gets up, and he orders his troops to capture Kenobi, and that's when Kenobi attempts to escape. Um, and
I love during this part where Kenobi just keeps going and going. Like, oh yeah, I think some refreshments might be in order.
yeah, yeah, that's funny. And they brought something in.
Yeah, I want one of those robots. That thing's so cute.
That's the same rabbit ears robot that was in um, Boba Fett. I think we saw him in the Boba Fett movie, and we see Anakin and Ahsoka battling a bunch of stuff. Also, they see a bunch of droids and whatever, and there's a booby trapped area around the shield generator
Yeah,
that gets triggered, and
Ahsoka
the
ran in and he
yeah
said, "Wait,
yeah, he said wait. And it's some sort of barrel droid or whatever. They look
they're
like
wicked.
barrels.
Yeah, they're wicked."
Yeah, they're pretty strong droids, and
Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that use of the force by her. Cuts off the legs and pushes him down the stairwell.
Yeah. And that's when they fall down and trigger more traps, right?
Yeah,
And it triggers like a bunch of them. They've got these weird wires that are hanging up that are triggers for the traps, and it hits like
yeah.
15 or 20 of those wires, and of course, all those pop up and are facing Anakin, um, and he's thanking her for the help, of course, because she screwed up and she apologizes and whatever, and
She takes that concrete wall down and he says, "What are you doing?"
yeah, definitely, and um, they have a pretty heavy battle with these droids, and um, you know, pretty much take most of them out. But they also get Ahsoka gets is eager to get the generator, and she ends up getting up close to it, and they have to set these charges on there. So once Anakin gets kind of free of the droids and whatever, he's like, "Did you set the charges?" And you know,
Yes, go back.
she goes back and makes sure the charges are set and programmed and all that, and they blow up the generator, right? The shield generator,
Mm-hmm.
and the shield comes down, and then we see Kenobi and his forces uh, start to attack some more because they know they can attack the troops under the shield, but there's too many of them, of course, and they keep retreating some more. Let's see what else. And it looks like they fight him and fight him and fight him and knock him down. And there's
Oh, Kenobi gets a general. Flips out of the droid's arms.
yeah, exactly. And he kills him, right? He kills the general.
Don't see it yet. He's like he's holding him in a headlock, and the reinforcements fly
Oh
over.
no, yeah, he gets the troops to surrender basically because he's got the general.
There's
Um,
Yoda.
and surprisingly, after he surrenders, Yoda shows up with uh, a group of
Reinforcements.
renegades, um, and an urgent message about Jabba's son. Um, and Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex rescue Kenobi. Or yeah, Obi-Wan flies to Tatooine to assure Jabba that that Rata, which is his son's name, um, will be returned
No,
safely and secure, uh, and promises the Huts and gets promise to use the trade routes for the Huts have in the Outer Rim. And Anakin and Ahsoka and Rex, like I said, go to the location that Yoda gave them that they think Rada's being held, right? Um, it's some weird remote planet, uh, and some sort of tower that looks almost like Jabba's palace, but it's a palace somewhere else or whatever that they've got Rada in. And this is where we see Ventress Assange
yes.
is there, uh,
Does it
and
seem something like that planet with the sisters?
yes, yes, she she's close with the witches. I don't think think she's like an adopted one or something, but she's not from the planet itself, maybe. But yes, so she and she's talking with Count Dooku on the holophone or whatever you want to call those things. And they're talking about how their plan's going as is planned, but they need to protect the child. But Dooku wants to uh, frame the Jedi for basically kidnapping and possibly killing Jabba's
Jabba's son.
son, so he can secure the trade routes for himself. Right? Let's see. After a briefing in the flagship, they're all around the big map station or whatever. Anakin descends to the jungle of Teth, which is the planet they're on. Natural stone pillars litter the landscape. And they go atop one of the pillars and find Rata. And there's a couple battles that happen there, and they finally get Rata. And he is sick for some reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka notices right away that he's got maybe a temperature and stuff like that. And they figure out that they're being trapped by Count Dooku because they meet Ventress Assange, and figure out that there's something going on. Kidnapped, and Dooku kidnapped Rada himself. And he's using the video footage to create fake evidence showing that the Jedi actually have Jabba's son, and he shows Jabba and puts suspicion in his head that the Jedi are actually the ones that are capturing something about one of the things that says in the video is "I hate the Hutts" or something like that.
Yeah.
I hate Hutts. So that convinces Jabba that the Jedi are kidnapping his son on purpose. And we see a lot of since Anakin and Ahsoka have been in several fights, they're starting to get along much better, right? They're kind of anticipating each other and understanding what's going on. And Anakin and Ahsoka escape with R2D2. They run around and find a platform that's got a landing area, but there's no transportation on it. R2D2 helps them open up doors and reroute people and stuff like that, and they get away out on this platform for a while, and they notice off in the distance there's another pillar that has a platform with a ship on it, and they're like, well, we need to get to that ship so we can get out of here. In the meantime, Ventress catches up with them, and there's a battle there and fighting and what is it? It's Anakin again that goes off to get the ship and leaves Ahsoka and R2 at the platform. And droid troops are attacking from underneath the platform, and Ventress and droid troops are up on the platform, all fighting with Ahsoka. And arrives just in time. Obi-Wan is alerted by Anakin, and is told that Anakin needs reinforcements, and he arrives just in time to relieve Rex and the rest of his forces and there's a big battle between him and Ventress. She's got the double sword thing, and at some point, he chops the sword in half, so she's got two separate swords, and that kind of thing goes on for a while, and they're both doing little force throwing of each other and other things, and
Oh, please throw me again. Thank you.
exactly, and he eventually defeats her, and just as he's about to capture Ventress, she escapes. Hops onto something and escapes. And we see a scene where I think it's Palpatine mentions to Senator Amidala, Padme, that Anakin is on a mission. And she, of course, gets worried about it, and he tells her that Zero the Hutt is where he's at, or they're trying to return Jabba's son, and also that Zero is involved, and there's a lot of trouble. And Padme finds out that they're having trouble convincing the Hutts that the Jedi are on the up and up and not doing the kidnapping. So she creates her own plan to go visit Zero the Hutt, to get him to convince Jabba that Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi are in the up and up, right? And she goes and kind of talks to Zero and whatever, and finds out that Zero was behind the whole plot along with Dooku, because he wanted to take over Hutt's territory, right? Jabba the Hutt's territory. They're both Hutts, so it doesn't make sense. But
The Hutt, his nephew or whatever.
yeah,
Whatever.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and Padme is at some point is detained with but she manages to while she's captured, she manages to talk to C-3PO because
Goes Jabba about the Jedi.
yeah,
And she
Dooku is still there convincing Jabba, and she while she's detained, her communication thing, the hollow phone, whatever you want to call that thing, is beeping, and they discover it, and the guards activate it, and it is C-3PO, and C-3PO is looking for Padme, and she ends up warning C-3PO that she's in trouble, and we see a scene where eventually C-3PO comes in and rescues her, and he's got some troops with him and stuff like that. And they arrest Zero by the Coruscant Guard, it says. And in the meantime, Anakin and Ahsoka have arrived on Tatooine, and they're attacked by guards almost immediately as they land. They call them Magna Guards. They're the ones with the swords that have electrical things at both ends of them or whatever. And they knock down the first round of them, and Anakin devises a trick because he knows that Dooku's coming after him, right? So he devises a trick after they've walked through the desert for a while, and he says, we're coming up on Jabba's palace, and we know Dooku's there trying to convince Jabba that the Jedi are trying to trick him or whatever. So he decides that they're gonna split up. Ahsoka and R2 go off one way, and he goes off another way, and he's carrying a pack just like Ahsoka was, and Dooku obviously uh, finds Anakin, and they have a battle. And during one of the fights, Dooku cuts through the middle of the backpack, and he says, "Aha! I've killed Jabba's son Rata, so there's nothing to worry about anymore. We might as well stop fighting." And that's when Anakin reveals that it's just a bag of rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the rocks that are split in half or whatever. And we flash to Ahsoka, who we now know has Rata, and she's got him some kind of swaddling cloth or whatever she's wrapped around her to carry him with. And R2 and her are at the palace, but they get ambushed by some more Magna guards as they get close to the palace. And she barely escapes defeating them. She has a lot of trouble. She sees Anakin go by as she's fighting him, and hollers at him for help and stuff. But he doesn't hear her, and he goes on. Um, and he enters the palace, and then Ahsoka is not far behind. Um, and they're threatened with execution and all that stuff, even after they returned Rata to Jabba, and that's when suddenly uh, Jabba gets a call from Padme, and she has uh, Jabba's cousin Zero tell Jabba that it was all a plot that him and Dooku came up with to get the trade routes, and Zero was going to take over Jabba's criminal activities too. And then we see not long after that, Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up with Yoda and Cody and all the other clones, and they triumphantly leave the palace, and that's kind of when the movie ends, right? Anything you got there to interject, Scott? Nope.
The 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 fighting is pretty good. The Ahsoka, she holds her own.
She does. She's
She
pretty
comes up
good.
with ways. She comes up with ways to get out.
Yeah, she's very resourceful. Um, exactly, and she yeah, it's always there's always better fighting, I think, in the animated stuff, obviously, because it's easier to do fighting in animation than it is live action, right? Um, so yeah, there was quite a bit of good fighting scenes, I think. Um, not a lot. I mean, it was kind of repetitive when they were fighting all the droids and stuff like that, but there's some good one-on-one combat with Ventress and Count Dooku had a couple um, battles too, um, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and all those different fighting.
That
Uh,
ship, that ship is crazy.
the one that they stole, or the
Yeah, the one that they stole.
it's a hunk of junk. That's what they call it. Uh, yeah, so there's that. Um, Scott, we already gave the answer, but I had my question of the week.
Uh-oh.
Is what is how old is Ahsoka during the movie? Do you remember what I told you she was?
14.
There you go. 14 is the answer. But the question of the week has multiple choices. We have choices of 10, 14, 7, and 17. And I put 17 on there because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, that's how old she is 17. So anyway, that's our question of the week. Go out and on our website and answer it. Let's see. Let's push this button here.
Feedback at KyleJohansson.us. That's feedback, KaileJohansen.us.
That's right. So we've got that email address there. Like I said, you can go to the questions of the week, and once you answer the question, there's a spot for comments. You can look at the results of who all has voted and see how the vote's going there. We have a link on our left hand side of the website for feedback. That's just a simple feedback form that you can go fill out. We don't collect anything from you that's personal information. We just collect the information you put in the answers for the questions. And the questions are basic. One of them is what do you want to be called by? The other one is a spot for you to put your comments. I listed as opinions, ideas, results, comments, responses, advice, or corrections. So we'll take any of that. Even if your opinion is against ours or you don't like us, whatever, we'll welcome all that stuff, right, Scott?
Yep.
Yep, we'll take it all. We may not respond nicely about it, but we'll take it.
We'll be as nice as we can.
Yeah, we'll be as nice as we can. I wanted to take a second also while we're here with the feedback to kind of call out a couple things. So I think last week we talked about, or not last week, the week before, because we took last week off, we talked about how many people were watching or listening to our show. And this week on Spotify, it says that we've had 12 different starts of episodes of our podcast, 7 people streamed. So the week before it was like 8 starts, and now we're up to 12. We've got 7 streams, 6 listeners, and now 3 followers on Spotify. And interestingly enough, the Indian podcast website, we now have 3 people who are listening to our podcast, and one that's been there for almost a month that's been listening. So, and according to the stats, one of those people is a female, and the other one is a male, of course. And the new person that's joined is, or not joined, but is listening, is from Kachindia. Kachindia is the name of the city. Anyway, we've got that. Don't have any other stats from any other places. The Google stuff is still the same. We've got 5 subscribers and 7 different people have played. On our website, still the same kind of stats there. We've got 42 impressions this last 28 days. So I think, maybe we've got a few more people listening, or maybe, numbers are starting to register. Currently, Scott, we have done 27 plus this one will be 28 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention that for a second. So I split up our stuff into seasons. Season 1 is Boba Fett. Season 2 was when we did the watch of the Bad Batch. Season 3 is when we did the prequel movies, all 3 prequel movies. Season 4 was when we watched A New Hope, and eventually I want to go back to season 4 and finish. We're gonna watch Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Season 5 was Obi-Wan Kenobi, all the shows for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we're getting ready to start season 6, which is going to be what I'm calling a Star Wars stories. So we're gonna Clone Wars, and then we're gonna do Solo and Rogue One, right? Um, which one of those comes first? You remember in the timeline, Scott? Solo is actually before Kenobi in the timeline.
Yeah.
So by at least 2 years, and about 3 or 4 years after Bad Batch is when Solo occurs. So we're gonna watch that next week and review it, and then the following week we'll review Rogue One, and then we'll kind of reassess at that time and see if we have time to watch Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I think we will. So that'll be nice. We can close out season 4 with those two, and season 6 with the Clone Wars, Solo, and Rogue One, and we'll start season 7 with something else, which I haven't really figured out yet, because I think we'll still even have time before the next show starts. We're getting ready to get into Andor starting. And the Bad Batch is supposed to start back up sometime soon too. Bad Batch I think is in September. But Andor is supposed to be at the end of August, I think, is what I remember. But we also could have that other show, the what is it called? The Jedi Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be one where they kind of have one or two characters per episode. And I think those are going to be, we're going to get we're going to get an episode dropped, and then maybe a couple weeks later we'll get another episode, kind of thing. I don't know, but anyway, so that's all of that. And
You know what? Going back,
Go ahead.
back this episode or this Star Wars, that was pretty. The land on the planet where the uncle's at or whatever.
Yep.
And the band was playing out front.
Yeah. The weird alien looking guys playing the drums and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were having a party outside instead of inside, right?
Yeah. One looked like he had a squeeze box like a.
Yep. It's true. There was someone on the horns too, wasn't there? Some sort of horn instrument. Yeah. But no Max Rebo.
No.
I didn't see Max Rebo either. I was looking, it's like, oh, it's a band. Is that looks like the band that Max Rebo played with. And it probably was that band, but he wasn't there.
Yeah.
He wasn't there, so yeah. Anything else, Scott?
No.
Okay, so we've got some news that I'm going to talk about. So we're doing stuff out of order. So I'll play the news.
Time for the news.
Nothing big. It's just an article I found. I showed it to you almost 2 weeks ago, Scott, where the 6 different empires that started before Palpatine. This is kind of an article that describes major different empires or ruling things that happened, and they aren't necessarily galaxy wide like Palpatine's was. They could be only a couple planets or something like that. So it's got 6 of them. We're just going to kind of briefly go through all 6 of them here. So there's the Gossam Curveyors is what this one's called, and the Gossam people originally came from a planet called Kestel. and they're one of the first species to embark on interstellar travel in this galaxy. Um, and it's mostly because they possess the knowledge of a um, drive called the tumble drive, which was an early form of hyperspace travel. So they were able to travel long distances before most of the people in the galaxy were, and they attempted to um, create their own empire. They weren't interested in um, trade in their empire. They just wanted, uh, like fruit and stuff like that. They were interested in um, trade and power, and they didn't like to fight. So they would kind of trick whoever they wanted to conquer into joining them by you know any means possible. But they tried not to fight. The next one is called the Deo Bindu, which we've heard of before. Um, and they're a empire of thought, knowledge, and spiritual influence, as opposed by military power. Um, so this Dea Bindu is the first incarnation of what
Jedi.
eventually called the Jedi, right? Um, and they drew kingdoms and empires and star systems into their fold, constructed the first holocrons, had temples and orders on both planets of Coruscant and Kamenji. If you remember, I think the day Bindi is what the um, in Rogue One, I think is what it was, where the um, uh, blind Jedi guy, he was
Yeah.
part of that order, I think. The
A long
Bindu
time.
monks, yeah, the society of Bindu monks was already ancient when they became the Jedi. Um, they came up with a symbol that was an eight-spoked wheel type of symbol, um, and it was modified and used for the Republic later on. Emperor Palpatine removed two spokes and used it for his crest for the Empire.
He was going to
Um,
be original.
yeah, yeah. Palpatine never was original. Yeah. The next one is the humans of Empress Teta. Um, and this is not this is not Earth or whatever. This is because we're in a different universe, so that's not Earth. It's it's in the deep center core, named for a mythological figure. It was for the most of the planet's history, the mining guild controlled its government, and the mining guild was controlled by the commerce guild. And this is kind of where the mining guild and the commerce guild were, um, trying to fight for dominance of, as many planets and such as possible. Um, and then they came entangled with the Spice Guild as well. Empress Teta was home to a large success of human empires that tried to, help negotiate with all those different guilds and such. Um, and this was also how many of the humans were able to, populate different parts of the galaxy because of the trade routes and different, you know, colonization that they were open to after they, brought other planets into their group. And the Galactic Empire had a big, Palpatine's Galactic Empire had a big trade facility on this planet in the future. Then there's the Zygerian slave empire. And I think if you remember, Zygerian is what in Rebels, what's his name? The purple guy? Zeb. I think he was a Zyberian. Or was a slave of Zyberians. I can't remember for sure. Zygerians. One of the most successful empires in the history of the galaxy. They, of course, captured people and made them slaves, and sold them to different places and made them do different things, like mining and such like that. Siberian slave empire lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years before being rooted out by the Jedi. During the Clone Wars, they attempted to reestablish themselves, hoping that Palpatine would tolerate slaves. And they did. The Empire did, but Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker stopped their attempts to start again. And then, of course, the next one is the Sith Empire. And this refers to what arose after the Great Hyperspace War, known as the Truth Sith, or the reconstituted Sith Empire. They built their empire in secret, and didn't publicize it like the Galactic Republic did or anything like that. They focused themselves on a planet called Drummond Kaas, and rebuilt, and Lord Vitalate declared himself the Emperor. And they had a council of Sith Lords that ruled. And so on. The next one is the Old Republic, which is what's going on during the Phantom Menace and stuff. That's the Old Republic. It's led by the the Jedi, or the Keepers of the Peace, but the houses of Coruscant and Alderaan are the founding members of the Old Republic. It was the longest lasting and most successful empire in the galaxy until Emperor Palpatine took over. It lasted for thousands of years. It collapsed on itself, crushed by the weight of corruption and loyalty, and even corruption within the Jedi Order brought down this empire. Star Wars, yeah. So, and that's also during the time when the Andor show is taking place, is during the Old Republic, or High Republic, they call it too. And you have to remember that Palpatine was only ruled for maybe 20 or 30 years, if you include some of the time in the new movies. Well, yeah, because there was a time period after Return of the Jedi that it was, Palpatine was no longer around. We didn't know where he was, right? And that's about 30 years right there between Return of the Jedi and the Skywalker movies that started coming back. Yeah, the Force Awakens is 30 years in between that and Return of the Jedi. Kind of the time, Boba Fett and all those Mandalorian all that stuff we're seeing in those shows. Yeah, so
Like the Mandalorians and stuff, they kept separate, and did their own thing.
yep.
They didn't really, go out on the protection racket. Weren't they mostly bounty hunters, or they just?
There was quite a bit of bounty hunters, yeah. And bounty hunters were a lot of times were used to, you know, enforce laws sometimes because they would go after a criminal, kind of like you always see in the Wild West movies they got a posse to go out and get
Awesome.
so and so. It's kind of what a bounty hunter was all about. Let me close up that news.
The news.
There we go. So, that's all I got for all that stuff. Scott, got anything
Well,
else? Looking forward to watching Solo again.
yeah.
I wasn't that impressed with it the first time I watched it. I'm pretty sure that's one of them that you and I saw in the theater.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it was good. It had some good stuff in it. And I'm sure when I watch it again, I'll find some good stuff that I like. But it was yeah, I don't know. It was
Yeah,
just
I'll watch it. I'll watch it again, even though I watched it this week too. But
Yeah.
I just ignore the main characters and I start looking in the background.
yeah. Yeah, there's part of that. I mean, I don't mind the guy that's playing Solo that much, but I didn't think he was very good. I really liked Lando.
Yeah.
What's his name that played Lando in there? And rumors are they're still coming up with a series with him in it. He's just wrapping up a couple shows that he's already been on for a couple years now, and they're getting ready to start filming on some stuff. I think is what I heard. Probably next year sometime. But anyway, so we're gonna do that. You want me to go ahead and do the outro, Scott, so we can be done?
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room podcast.
Please visit our website where you can play current and past episodes. That's https://RABR KyleJohansson.us. That's RABR.KyleJohansen.us. On the left-hand side is a navigation menu. You can use this to learn how to load the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room podcast on your Android or Apple phone and tablet. And we have direct links to our podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts. Please participate by connecting to our social media, answering questions of the week, or submitting feedback directly from the site. Again, all of these are available at the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room website at RABR.KyleJohansen.us. This podcast in no way is approved, sponsored, or owned by Lucasfilms Ltd., Disney, Disney Plus, or any of its subsidiaries. All opinions are solely owned by Kyle and or Scott, and in no way express the views or opinions of their past or present employers. Views and opinions are not supported or restricted by Lucasfilms Ltd., Disney, Disney Plus, or any of its subsidiaries. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or any or other use of this podcast and its affiliate sites without consent of Super Duper Podcast Network and its host is prohibited.
So you want to go outside?
I am Kyle Johansson, and this is Andrew Scott Sutton. Say goodbye now. Bye-bye. Bye now.
Bye-bye now. Hello. Bye-bye.
Bye. Stop.